Hi, Meg. You're still muted. Hey, Chris.
Hey, everyone, can you guys hear me?
We
I
can. Good
Oh,
evening.
very good. Good evening.
Good
Dylan,
evening.
can we turn the speaker up in here a little bit? Yeah, thank you. I don't want to run it through my computer. It'll give that back feedback. Thank you.
I don't see Lauren or Laurel right yet.
Dylan, are Laurel or Lauren in the waiting room?
I don't see them.
About 1 sec.
How's it going, Dave? Hi, Dave.
Hi. Sorry, I've been sitting in the same chair for 12 hours, so
Oh, lucky you.
Only slightly numb. Yeah.
yeah.
Is your company not working at all? You're doing all remotely?
Yeah, we're doing it all remotely. And of course, yesterday was a holiday, so whatever work doesn't get done yesterday gets piled on today.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, there's Lauren.
Hi, Lauren.
Oh, there's Laurel.
Hello,
And
everybody.
Sean. Hi there.
Hi.
Is Justin Rankin there yet?
Looks like a lot of people are still connecting.
Yeah. We're up to 44.
Thanks, babe.
I don't see Justin yet.
He should be coming.
Good.
It's fully charged.
Justin, how are you, Justin?
Good. How are you?
Charles, can you inquire, should we wait? Are these really people trying to connect, or should we just get started?
Dylan, did you hear that question? I'm checking our control booth here.
The only person still in the waiting room is Eric Martin, who's trying to join now.
Okay, well then I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Your pledge of allegiance, you all join? pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag of the United States
of America and to the republic for which it
for which it
stands,
stands
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
liberty
justice.
and justice for all.
for all.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to
I
approve the
move.
agenda.
Okay,
I'll
Tim,
s-
second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
I
Aye.
Yes. Approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
For a second,
I'll second it.
Meg? Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Audience of citizens. Is anybody interested in addressing the board at this point?
Does not look
Doesn't
like
look
it's
like
happening
Dylan,
that.
at
are you
this
giving
time.
us a thumbs up?
Nobody's in the chat.
Okay, well, we'll have a chance if later if you'd like. Student representative reports. Who'd like to go first?
I can get started with that.
Okay,
Okay, so good evening, everybody. Recently, at our last student senate meeting, it was brought to my attention again, thankfully, that capstone night is quickly approaching. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the senior capstones that have been going on. We have all sorts of a variety of activities this year, with some students painting a mural in the PHS cafeteria, students offering other students the chances to personalize their parking spaces. We have online concerts and virtual events being organized, like job fairs and job fairs and career fairs are the same thing. Career fairs and other events. And I believe last year the board got to hear from Grant Collins about his project, the Highlander Report, which was his revamp of our sports broadcasting program. This year that is being continued by some other seniors. And since there haven't been a lot of sports this year to report on, they've opened up a merchandise shop online so people can still wear their PHS gear and represent our teams. I believe you can find more information about that on the community Facebook page. But if you're looking for a way to support the PHS athletics, even in this rocky year, that's a great way to do it. So those guys carrying on the Highlander Report, even when there's not so many sports to report on. And then finally, the class of, I don't even remember what they are. The freshman class this year, for one of their first fundraisers, has organized a Tastefully Simple sale online. I believe information about that can also be found either on Facebook or on social media, or I'm sure if you reach out to them, that class and their advisors, they'd be glad to provide you with information. So yeah, that's their ongoing fundraiser, I believe, until the end of the month. And with that, that's all I've got. I think Sean has some more to add.
Yeah, I do. So, hi, everyone. The updates I have are just that last week, the Student Senate went into school just to do some redecorating of the bulletin boards. And one of them says happy winter and welcome back. And then the other one has sticky notes with kind phrases for students to take. And then Justin and I are both in the blue cohort, so we can't really speak to how it was in the building today. But I talked to one of my friends in the red cohort who was in school, and he said it was refreshing to be back and that he's looking forward to when we can fully return. And that's all I've got.
great. Thank you both.
thank you.
Okay, communication and updates. Mr. Superintendent.
All right. So let's go through some of the communications first. We did receive a letter of resignation from Sandy Favali. We wish her well in her new position. I believe she's moving on to be a paraprofessional in Cromwell. So I do wish Ms. Favali well. We also received a letter of resignation from Kathleen Sear. Kathleen was a paraprofessional. Kathleen had also done some long-term subbing for us. She's a certified English teacher, and she's going on to be an English language arts teacher at Manchester High School. I am very happy for her, and even more happy for the students in Manchester. They're going to really enjoy Miss Sear. She's terrific in every way, and we wish her all the best. Did include a communication from Roger Jensen with you. Actually, excuse me, it's from Amy Jensen, sent from Roger Jensen's email address. Again, she expressed some concern about the decision to reopen. I did want to make sure that you had that. I did reply to Ms. Jensen and let her know that we are going to be carefully monitoring things and prepared to intervene if hopefully we won't have to, but if that ever became necessary. All right. Also, I wanted to publicly recognize and thank the Community Foundation of Middlesex County, who generously donated $1,000 to the YMCA to support our families who took advantage of the daycare that we offered during the period of remote instruction. The YMCA was terrific in every way. They were really helpful. I certainly appreciate the YMCA for the support they provided our families and the timely manner in which they got that daycare program up and going. So this donation and several others will be used to help offset some of the expenses that our families faced who were confronted with the need to place children in childcare during that period of remote learning. So I certainly am going to send a note to the Community Foundation and thank them for their generous donation. Also wanted to make sure you're aware that we did, have put our name in for an ongoing grant that we've been a part of for several years called Project Oceanology. This is for next year. This year, the Project Oceanology work is being done all virtually. Certainly, we hope that by next year we'll be back at it, and this is something that our sixth graders have participated in for several years at Brownstone. So. We have put that interdistrict cooperative grant in on our behalf and certainly hope that we're able to continue our relationship in person next year with Project Oceanology and the Connecticut River Connections. Okay, so those are all of the communications. Before I get to my reopening update, are there any questions? Okay, so reopening update. Let me start with some of the data here. So the numbers I'm going to share with you tonight, they're about a week old now. And I think based on my conversations with Russ this afternoon, I think these numbers reflect last week's data, which is a period where we did see the feared holiday surge. So currently, as of January 14th, so again, these numbers are going to be updated again this week, but as of January 14th, average cases per 100,000 in the town of Portland were 68 per 100,000. That compares with Colchester, which was 94 per 100,000, East Haddam, which was 32 per 100,000, East Hampton, 60 per 100,000, Hebron, 44 per 100,000, and Marlborough, 43 per 100,000. And the average in the Chatham Health District was 61.6 per 100,000. So yeah, they're all classified. All the Chatham Health District towns are classified as red alert districts, and those numbers are still high. With respect to the county level data, again, this is updated as of 1/9, so it's a little bit dated, but this is the most recent data that's being reported. Wyndham had over 100.6 cases per 100,000. New London, 83.8 per 100,000. Hartford came in at 70.2 per 100,000. New Haven, 69.1 per 100,000. Fairfield, 64.9 per 100,000. Middlesex, we were at 60.9 per 100,000. Litchfield was at 50.2 per 100,000, and Tolland was at 48.1 per 100,000. And the state of Connecticut as a total was at 68.5. So some of the other counties leapfrogged Portland. But again, those numbers are still on the high side. We're looking forward to them coming down now that hopefully we're past the holiday surge and hoping that we're at the peak or on the downside of the curve that side that we all want to be on. So again, with respect to ongoing recommendations from the Department of Public Health and the Chatham Health District Director, it is still their position that they aren't seeing widespread outbreaks in schools, and that it is their position that as long as it continues to be administratively possible, that in-person learning is the preferred model, so long as we implement the mitigation strategies with fidelity. So to that end, we reopened today fully in grades K through 6, pre-K through 6, excuse me, and in the hybrid model in grades 7 through 12. Our hope is that if things go well for the next 2 weeks, that we will return fully 7 through 12 on February 1st. I can tell you, and I did include in your highlights last week, that we are still confronted with relatively large numbers of faculty and staff who are subject to quarantine periods, either because of exposures in the community primarily, or in one case, an exposure in the school. Fortunately, I have not heard that any of the people who are subject to the quarantine are testing positive. Most of the test results that I'm aware of have come back negative, which is a good thing. But I will say that that reflects the critical importance for us to have developed the pool of substitute teachers that we were able to put together. Those subs are here now, and saw many of them out in the schools today. And again, I need to extend my appreciation to all the members of our community who raised their hands and stepped forward during our time of need. And they're being put to good use as of today for sure. So 2 other updates on the reopening. First, I shared with you in your board packet a letter that we received from the Department of Public Health with some recommendations and guidelines about a return to winter sports. This also coincides with a decision that we received last Thursday from the CIAC. So as you know, all interscholastic public school or school-based athletics and community-based athletics were put on pause by the governor and the CIAC and the Department of Public Health until today, right? So last Thursday was a little bit of a surprise to find out that from Thursday to today, we were notified that winter sports may begin, and that's per the CIAC. But as I've kind of been clear about from the beginning is that the CIAC can give us their blessing, but it's really the Department of Public Health that we're going to defer to in terms of making decisions about which, if any, of our sports we would proceed with. So the letter that I shared with you dated January 8th indicates that it is the position of the Department of Public Health that we may return to winter athletics. Their recommendation is that we start with the low to moderate risk sports, which in our case would be basketball and indoor track. And then for the higher risk sports, in our case, that would be cheerleading and wrestling. We might get back to some conditioning, some workouts, some training sessions with those groups, but that it would not be the recommendation of the Department of Public Health that we have wrestling matches, that we have, full contact wrestling competition. So, in speaking with a high school principal today, and starting to get our ducks in a row here, my recommendation would be that we start and begin hopefully by the end of this week with your blessing, and I certainly would entertain a motion to endorse this, that we return to basketball and indoor track conditioning, and that as we go further into the winter sports season, if we were to return to wrestling and competitive cheer, that it would be primarily in the form of workouts and conditioning, but not per the guidelines set forth by the Department of Public Health, wrestling meets or things that would be considered high-risk activities, specifically as it relates to competitive cheer or wrestling. So I would love your feedback and sense of our return to winter sports.
I have a question. In the letter, it states not to start any of this before February 19th, which is today, or January 19th, which is today. But do you have a date in mind to begin the basketball and the indoor track? Is it going
With
to
your
be
blessing,
after they go back to school full time, or are they going to, you started before that?
yeah, we would, with your blessing again, we would like to start with basketball and indoor track as soon as the end of this week, and potentially return to wrestling, conditioning, and cheerleading. We have to get some more feedback about what specific things, how we would do that, and whether it would just be workout routines or low risk conditioning that those teams could do. We probably wouldn't get that together until I would guess the end of next week.
I think that plan sounds great.
This would be, everybody would be masked, and this would be just, you're talking about practices at this point?
Correct. So in the Department of Public Health letter dated
Mhm.
January 8th, it
Yep.
lays out some very specific guidelines for mask wearing, quarantine requirements, return to play conditioning. And then the other really important piece of feedback that they gave us is for those athletes who have tested COVID positive, there's a whole new level of screening that we need to do with those students before we allow them to return to play. So our district health people are going to clear those students and work with pediatricians to make sure that those students who have tested positive with COVID and now at some point in the fall and now want to play a winter or spring sport in the future would have to go through additional screening. And that's all pretty clearly laid out in the guidelines from the DPH.
So
And-
DPH also suggests that beginning February 1st, our teams could compete against teams from other schools. Is that part of your recommendation that we move towards that?
That we move towards that, correct. Yep, my recommendation would be that we return to winter sports following the DPH guidelines.
Right.
And they also say that they're recommending that teams not participate in the traditional large format indoor track meets. So is there a proposal about how that will look different or what we're looking at?
Right. So let me explain why that is there are very few indoor tracks in the state, right? Frankly, the only one I'm aware of is at Hill House High School in New Haven. There may be other indoor tracks that I'm not aware of, but that's the big one that I'm aware
This is
of.
the Floyd Little Center in New Haven.
Right, New Haven, right. So our indoor track athletes, they practice every day, and if you're here in the afternoon, you'll see them running through the buildings, working out in the school. But the problem with when you only have a small number of indoor tracks to go to, they become large jamborees with many schools coming together for the meets. So the DPH has advised against that. They have said bringing together lots of schools for a jamboree-like competition is a bad idea. So certainly we would allow indoor track to practice and work out and condition, but it is unlikely this year that we would be having large multi-school meets at these relatively few locations like the one in New Haven.
I'm not clear. So we would be continuing to condition the indoor track athletes, but not compete or not travel to a indoor track. Is that correct? They would continue to be doing the conditioning that they're doing now.
They're not doing anything now. So
Right.
all athletics has been paused until today.
Okay.
After today, the indoor track would begin, conditioning, running in the buildings.
Okay, beginning.
getting in
Okay, they
shape.
hadn't done it yet. Okay. Okay.
No winter sports have yet convened at all.
Charles, if there was the opportunity for the track team to have a meet against one or two other teams, not being a large scale jamboree, but a smaller meet, would that be something that was acceptable?
So according to the DPH, that might be acceptable, but the large multi-school meets would not be. Be completely honest with you, I haven't seen any schedules yet. I haven't seen any, when those competitions might be held. Likely those are coming out, but would expect that CIAC conform to the expectations established by the Department of Public Health. And if they don't, we will.
There'll be the same restrictions in terms of spectators also, Charles?
Yes, yes. It will be highly unlikely unless, vaccinations are showing high degrees of efficacy and the numbers have bottomed out in March, which again, let's be realistic, is unlikely, but we can be hopeful that we would have, a packed auditorium with people and cheerleaders in a sort of traditional basketball game that you might see. It is likely that in February, we would be having maybe games, one team against the other, but there would unlikely to be fans at those games at this point. I think the numbers would have to decrease dramatically, primarily because it's indoors, right? I mean, I can't imagine Russ giving his blessing to a large packed auditorium of fans screaming for a basketball game. I don't see that happening. I would absolutely have Russ on the phone and ask him what would be safe if we were to limit the number of fans or get to a point where he would be comfortable giving it his blessing. But right now, I certainly couldn't see Russ saying a crowded auditorium with screaming fans is a good idea. I'd be shocked, and he wouldn't. So,
Do you anticipate that there will be any issues or problems with enforcing masks on any of the teams?
no, I don't see that. I think our one of the very pleasant surprises this year is how compliant and appropriate all of our students at every grade level have been with the mask wearing. We haven't had. I've had maybe I can count on one hand the number of issues we've had with people not wearing masks. And mostly it's been pull it up. Occasionally they come down below the nose. But
Right.
Our students are great. They've been very compliant. And I think for our basketball team and track, they would know that in order for you to continue to practice and be a part of the team, you have to follow the DPH guidelines and very clearly mask wearing is an expectation. If that became an issue, it's unlikely those athletes would be allowed to continue practicing or playing, which would encourage them to wear the mask.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that the board support the superintendent's recommendation to go forward with sports restarting in alignment with what's been prescribed by the Department of Health in the memo presented to us tonight.
I'll second.
I would just like to add that specifics be posted. I don't know how we can, or maybe we just need to say that, specifics need to be posted so that everybody knows when things start and how things will be monitored very closely for infection rates and any changes. It doesn't have to be in the motion. I agree with the motion as it's stated.
I think as long as we're following the DPH, I don't know if maybe that should be a part of the motion, but as long as we're doing what they say.
It is. That's what I said.
It is. Tim did say to follow the Department of Health recommendations.
Well, I'm sure that the guidelines will be made known to the kids who are participating. They'll, have to follow those guidelines. So any other discussion?
It will also be an important, it'll also be an important part of coaches meetings that we have before we get going. So the coaches will all know very clearly what the expectations are, and then we'll be prepared to implement them with the fidelity that they need to be implemented.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion?
No.
If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Unanimous.
Yeah.
And then the last one I want to give you an update on on vaccinations and a clinic that we're planning here. So it's been a little bit of a whirlwind for the past week. a week ago Tuesday, I got to back you up 7 days ago, we had an indication from both the Department of Public Health and from the Chatham Health District that 1B people would be able to schedule vaccinations. And we were told that that was likely to be announced Thursday. So we heard that on Tuesday. Russ called me on Wednesday and said, hey, I want to run a vaccination clinic for the faculty and staff in your district, which, you know, if we hadn't been on the phone, I likely would have given him a hug if I weren't in a pandemic. So I was very excited to hear that. And of course, we wanted to get our people vaccinated. So he went ahead and we started planning that. But then Thursday, things went sideways, right? So the announcement that we got on Thursday last week was not that 1B individuals would be eligible. That was kind of a rug being pulled out from under us moment. The announcement instead was that people 75 years of age and older are the next wave of people. So you had 1A, then we have people 75 and older who are the next group of people that can begin scheduling vaccinations. So I spoke with Russ. He was very apologetic, and it wasn't his fault. I heard the same thing he did, which was 1B would be going next when somewhere in the communication channels it changed and became 75 plus. But Russ did ask me if the vaccination clinic could still be run out of the secondary complex. The reason for that is because the secondary complex, as part of the all hazards plan in the community, is identified as what's called a point of distribution center. So, you know, the secondary complex was actually used for vaccinations. That's how many years ago now, I've forgotten, when we had the H1N1 outbreak. And it is now something that they want to reactivate for a vaccination clinic. Certainly, we want to do everything we can to support the distribution of the vaccinations. So today, the middle school principal, Carl, myself, we met with Susan Bransfield was up here, Russ was up here, Bob Shea was up here. We sort of toured the facility and have it set up now that on Thursday from 4 to 9, anybody who's hearing me and is 75 and older can go into VAMS and schedule their vaccination here at the high school. So folks will enter through the middle school, register in the hallway in front of the main office of the middle school. There will be 10 vaccination stations, 10 nurses administering the vaccine in the middle school cafeteria. And then as part of the process, you have to be vaccinated, and then you have to be observed for 15 minutes by a nursing staff. So after the vaccination in the middle school cafeteria, folks will then walk over to the high school cafeteria where chairs will be set up and they will be observed for their 15-minute time frame to make sure there aren't any adverse reactions to the vaccine. And then they'll exit out through the high school. So it's all set up. That's something that's going to happen this Thursday from 4 to 9. Again, anybody who's hearing me talk about this and you're 75 and older, please go into VAMS and reserve your vaccination. And otherwise, I think it's going to run smoothly and something certainly I'm excited to see happen. And in conversations with Russ, he has assured me that as soon as 1B opens, he will work to provide a vaccination clinic here for all of our faculty and staff. So it's happening, thank goodness, and we're likely to see vaccine going in arms here in Portland this Thursday night.
Cool.
Could you just clarify if this is just Portland residents or this is going to be anybody who's registered in VANS who's been told to come for an appointment?
Anybody in the state of Connecticut who's registered in VAMS.
Okay.
Yeah, and they have 300 doses. So there are 300 seats available for folks who are 75 and older.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
All right, that's all I have.
All right, we can move on then to district financial reports. Ms. Fragola. think she needs to be unmuted.
Hey, Dylan, can we unmute? And
He's there. Yep. Hi, Steph.
I'm here. Hi.
hey, Steph.
So you all got my report.
We
Really,
did.
first, I just want to know if there was any questions on any of the information that you received.
I have a question. Down at the bottom of your report, you mentioned that we are doing steam trap survey. So the steam trap survey is done for Valley View and Brownstone. I know what a steam trap survey is, but I'm wondering if this cost is something that we have to do, and are we starting from scratch? Are these things leaking? Are they, what prompted the maintenance on the steam traps in these two schools?
I knew that question was going to come up, so I asked Carl to see if he was going to be on, if he could help explain what we did. So if Carl is here, if they can unmute him.
Hi, everybody. So we had this was through an energy audit that was done. And that was one thing that sometimes they do lighting, lighting upgrades in schools and stuff like this. This was an option. We chose it as an option because a lot of the steam traps are not working properly, not closing properly, and also the actuators. So what that would do would get these ones that have been tested and get them replaced. We did replace several of them at the Brownstone Intermediate School already. It's expensive, and otherwise the heat runs wild. It could be 85 degrees in there and you can't control it because they don't shut down. That's why we chose this project to get done. If you don't want to spend the money on it, we certainly don't have to, but we're not correcting a problem that's been ongoing for years.
And I believe that there's some sort of discount. So we run the survey through it was it ESC, Carl?
Yes, ESC, yes.
And so they get a 50% reimbursement. We paid for only 50% of the cost. We get reimbursed from somewhere.
Eversource
For the difference. So then anything that comes up in the survey, I believe if we were going to repair it, we get it at a discounted rate because we went through this whole process. So I think that's why we did it, because it was so cheap to do this portion of it, just to see where we were at.
How much are we actually spending, just out of curiosity? And it sounds, you don't know. Okay. Have we identified all the steam traps in those two buildings?
All the steam traps have been identified and have been tested.
Okay.
They were tested back in early fall. We actually had to put the heat on early in the morning before the kids were even here. And the company was in there, ESC was in there testing them and finding out where the failures were and where they're not. Okay. And we have not, matter of fact, I have a phone call from Pat Burns, who's the coordinator of this for us. And I got it later this afternoon. And honestly, I haven't had a chance to return it. And because I was in the meeting with Charles, and I will talk to him tomorrow on that.
Yeah, I guess we just need to update ourselves and know, I guess it's an unknown that we don't know what we're going to spend or how many traps have to be replaced. But when I saw it, I said, what in the heck are steam traps? So now I know a lot about steam traps. So I get
let me give you an example.
It has to be done.
Let me give you an example, Meg. Before we replaced the steam traps in the hallways on the first floor at the Brownstone Intermediate School, when you walked in there, the temperature was 86 degrees in the hallway.
I believe it.
And same way in the classrooms, and the classroom windows were wide open in the middle of February because it was too hot. We have replaced across the front of the building, from the principal's office up the hall towards the auditorium. And part of the way back down the other hall, it was expensive. We spent about $11,000 doing that. And we've replaced some of them in the hallways and the stairways.
Okay.
Some of these have been original, just so you know, since 1932.
I believe it.
Whichever way, we can probably shut this project down at any point. If we can turn around and say, when I meet with Pat, if he comes up with a list and it's outrageous, I will come to you guys, or the Buildings and Grounds Committee, call a special meeting, discuss it with Charles and Stephanie, and decide where we're going.
That sounds like a good plan, Carl. Thanks. Thank
Okay.
you for answering that. Thanks, Stephanie.
Carl, can I ask, if we replace steam traps, would we be seeing savings in energy usage also?
Yeah, because I think your heat's going to shut down when it comes to temperature. Well,
Right.
You know what? Let me say this to you. I don't know that for a fact, because if the steam trap is not closing, there's steam in the line, it's still coming through. It's not shutting it off to that room. So if somebody had their thermostat set on 70 degrees or 68 degrees and the steam traps are not working properly, they're not closing off when they get to that point. They're just still running wide open. That was why we were getting the temperatures that we were getting in all. I mean, literally, it seemed like you could melt crayons in there if you wanted to.
Yeah,
I think that was the case at Valley View. Yeah.
I think there's been a significant difference where we have replaced them. I think we've got better, but the actual, are we going to save? No, because I think the boiler shuts down. It's not feeding anymore. It's just taking that steam that's already in the lines, which there is a lot of lines in there. So it's not shutting that room off when it's supposed to, if that makes sense to you.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions on my Excel spreadsheet with the comparisons from last year to this year?
Stephanie, I had a quick question just on the COVID-19 money. It's not on the spreadsheet.
Yep. So I moved out about 55% of the expenses that we have spent. So I still have to do the rest of it. I've been working on it because there's reports due to the state. So I've been gradually doing my journal entry. So most likely by the March update, and I can even probably give you a better update in February once those all come out. But most of the lines that they're in are the 12000 account, the temporary payroll. Purchase service line 30030. I'm moving out a lot of the sub payments to ESS that we can claim as COVID. Between 61011 supplies and 64041 textbooks, there's stuff in there that I'm moving out for the schools, and some in 73014 and 73015 for some software that we had picked up in some of the schools for online learning, and a lot of the cameras that we purchased, the hotspots, all that will all be moved hopefully in the next month. That's all. All I've been doing is COVID stuff.
So do you think
I have
you'd be
maybe
in a
$125,000 left.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. How much
Sorry,
left?
say that again. I
How
didn't
much
hear that.
left?
I think about 120. I think about 125,000 more I have to move.
Okay. So do you think by February you'd be in a position to show us an update of the sheet with just the COVID expenses and the reimbursements?
Sure. Yep. Yeah, I'll have that. The other sheet that I usually give, I can do that, show where I took the money from, and hopefully by then too we'll have an idea for the next round of the ESSER round 2. We thought it was going to come out on Friday. It did not. So hopefully by the next meeting, I'll have a better idea for that as well. And really the position we're in right now, Charles and I are going to sit down probably beginning of February and start looking at things that we can start releasing and letting people purchase some things. We really want to try and do the final part of the Wi-Fi project that we had budgeted to complete that, because that will help with some of the items in next year's budget. So there's a few things that we would like to try and do and see from the other schools, you know, what they may need to get through the spring semester, and still try and keep us in a good spot.
Great. Anybody
Can
else have a
also,
question?
just a comment that, following the inauguration of Biden, he has put out a $1 trillion package, and I think about 170,000 of it will come to schools if they give us any of it. So there could be more money in the spring as well. But, nothing you can, go to the bank with right now, but there could be more funds coming, and it would be COVID related.
And that's
For
why I'm
COVID
kind of
related
treating
expenses.
and I'm kind of treating everything right now as if we're not getting any more money, and I'm
And
trying
we
to
should.
Catch up and make up until we get that final number to know. I don't want
Right.
to start opening things up and say, go ahead and buy stuff, and
No.
then we get nothing else, because we do still have other expenses, that we
No.
do need to cover.
Yep. Agreed.
Any other questions?
No.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Okay, new business. Our 21-22 calendar.
All right, if I can just spend a little bit of a few minutes here talking to you about I've given you two calendars, right? So right now for this year, as you know, we are able to make snow days remote learning days. And this year I feel like we've kind of struck the middle ground where we've said, okay, the first three weather-related events would be snow days, and then after the third weather-related event, they would become remote learning days, and that would give us a sort of guaranteed sense of when, the end of the school year would be. So, if you look first at version 2, right? Version 2 would be my recommendation if, and that's a big if, the State Board of Education and Connecticut State Department of Education continues that policy and allows us to make snow days remote learning days. If that dispensation is granted next year, my recommendation would be, okay, let's let the community know that the first three weather events would be snow days. The fourth and any subsequent weather events would be remote learning days. And if we did that, we would be able to guarantee that the latest we would close if we had those three weather events would be June 21st. By doing that, I would suggest that we put February vacation back in the calendar. So, February vacation is something that I imagine Portland, I know most districts took out after that year that we had the hurricane and the freak October snowstorm, and we were all going to school until the end of June, which was brutal, right? And canceling April vacations. Remember that year? That was just awful, right? So that was the year that kind of was the death knell for February vacation. But I've always found that February vacation is important because, that's the height of flu season. It gets everybody out of the building. It's a long run from, January 1st, January 2nd until April vacation. And if we had the flexibility to make snow days remote learning days, after the third weather event, we could put February break back in the calendar and still guarantee a date certain that we wouldn't be going to school until close to the end of July. So version 2 is, again, not something I'm going to ask for your vote on tonight, but when we learn if this snow day to remote learning day is possible, it might be something I would bring back for reconsideration. Version 1, though, which is the highlighted in yellow, that's the one I would ask for your endorsement of tonight. And this one assumes that all snow days would be snow days, that they wouldn't be remote learning days. So version 1 would be, we can't make snow days remote learning days. Any weather-related cancellations would have to be made up in June. You know, and let's hope we don't get another October snowstorm and hurricane in the same year. But otherwise, that's what the calendar would look like. So I'm sort of hoping that you approve version 1 tonight, but keep it in the back of your mind that if we're allowed to make the snow days remote learning days, we might revisit version 2 in the future. Either version, though, you'll notice starts school on the same day and has the first essentially 5 months of the school year the same. It's largely going to be a question of whether and if we have a February break.
I just have a suggestion. On February of 2022, if we were to go back to your version 2, the 22nd of February would be right in the middle of a break with PD Day. If we were going to approve version 1, I'd like to see PD Day on the 18th of February, that teachers would get the 21st and 22nd off. And then that way, when we did version 2, if that were to fly later on, they're not going to be doing a professional development day in the middle of a no school week. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does. The only challenge with that, Meg, is that if we made the PD day the 18th, we'd have to add another day on the end of the year for the students, because the
Okay.
students wouldn't be in school on the 18th.
Right, they wouldn't.
So it would mean that what you're saying, I think, is in version 2. If we made the PD day the 18th, gave the teachers off the 22nd, we'd have to move the last day of school till the 17th.
But you could potentially make it, if we were to move towards version 2 eventually, you could potentially make it Friday the 25th instead of the 22nd, so that it's not smack in the middle of the teacher's vacation week.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I would suggest that, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is that people going away sometimes can leave on Thursday night and get a 3-day vacation somewhere. If COVID allows us to, they can go to Florida, or they can go, you know, someplace for more than a couple of days. That might be a big deal to our families at some point. I don't know, just a suggestion.
Can I ask a question about snow days? I mean, and this is I guess related to version 2. It's appealing. It's definitely appealing to put a February vacation back into the calendar. I think families and our teaching staff and all of our staff would probably very much appreciate that. I guess I'm concerned that if we make the move towards having planned at-home learning days for snow days, that the reason that distance learning has come to work well now is that our students and our teachers are really used to it. You know, my kindergartner she's used to her schedule. She knows what a distance learning day is this year because she is part of her routine. But the idea of a kindergartner or a third grader or whoever, you know, one random day in the middle of February, all of a sudden having to pull out their computer and learn from home, that's not a routine they'll be used to. And so I'm wondering if there will actually be value in those learning days.
That's a really, really good question. And what I think I imagine, knowing the State Department of Education for what it is, likely they'll say, if you want to be allowed to make remote learning days, snow days, remote learning days, give us a plan, right? We would likely have to develop and submit a plan. I think the cornerstone of that plan would have to be, one, that we have the technology to do it, meaning that we have enough Chromebooks to go out the door when it looks like a nor'easter is ripping up the eastern seaboard, right? That we have the capacity to do it. But the other cornerstone of the plan would have to be that our students know how to do it when that eventuality comes around. So what we would have to do in the classroom is practice with it, right? Our teachers would have to spend some time showing students how to log on to a Google Meet, how to use it. And that practice would have to come during the course of the snow day so that the transition could be seamless in the event of a weather cancellation. It's not something, you're right. Because I think what you're saying is that, hey, hopefully a year from now, this distance learning is a distant memory. We have a new group of gardeners that have never done this. We have to, be prepared to do it, right? And that would require some planning.
I personally, I have similar feelings about remote learning for snow days. I mean, we could even be talking about teachers needing to be home with their children because likely their children would have snow days also. So how are these teachers going to be able to give the same quality of instruction remotely that they would be able to give in person? So, in my opinion, I think the district is doing a great job with remote learning this year, but I don't think that you can equate a remote learning day as quality as an in-person day. So I feel like, we'd be kind of trading a kind of a subpar day of education for the kids. So kind of that's my feeling on it. And I do have a question that it's been kind of in my mind for since I joined the board, about Columbus Day. And I'm wondering if it's a conversation that we could have as a board to consider renaming it Indigenous Peoples Day. Is that something that we could be open to discussing?
Well, we can, why don't we save that till we get to the Board of Ed comments at the end of the meeting? And we'll see if there's a consensus to have that discussion.
I had just a question about the February vacation or the February recess on version 2. Has there been a lot of feedback from parents and families that they want that back? I know it was removed a few years ago, and I've never had anybody approach me and say they'd like to have that back again. And
families yet. I did speak with several teachers about it, and it seems like everything else, and there's a split down the middle of teachers who want it and teachers who don't. There's some teachers who will say I would love the February break, and there's some teachers who would say now I'd rather get out earlier in June. The one academic group of teachers who are concerned about the February break are the advanced placement teachers. They really feel like that time is critical because the AP exams that roll around in March, when you're in February, are on the doorstep, and they feel like giving up that time in February for their advanced placement courses would be difficult. Not insurmountable, but would be difficult. So, I think generally, while I haven't done the survey out there, there's probably, like a lot of things we've surveyed on this year, 50-50 split in terms of people who would like the week off in the middle of the winter or like to get out earlier in June. And I think that's pretty much what the sense comes down to.
that's it. Did you comment on families? I know you talked about teachers and staff, but.
No, that's something I probably could do easily.
Oh, well, I would ask if, because I know you're only asking us at this point to approve version 1. So if we were going to look at that other option, I'd want to understand better how families, how that fits in with their perspective coming off, Christmas vacation and then another vacation in February and then the other week in April. I'd be curious.
I think that's fair and likely. I mean, version 1 is the one I'm hoping you'll approve tonight. But right. I just really, gave you version 2 as sort of a think about it, keep it in mind. And I'm not sure when we would learn whether it would be this winter, this spring, or this summer, whether we even could continue to make snow days remote learning days. If we can't, I think the issue's, moot at that point. Right. If we can, right. I would likely come back to you with a plan and more fully vetted recommendation about how we would make the remote days meaningful, right. Gather some input from families and different constituent groups. Version 2, I think right now is more just keep it in mind. It's something that we might want to revisit.
I have to agree with what Lauren was saying, and I think Laurel too. I mean, I think dusting off those rusty remote learning skills for that odd winter day when it comes up. If we haven't been doing that, hopefully, God, hope we don't. It would be difficult, but that's that's something you deal with at the time. But
I can't help but wonder also about widespread power outages, or even not widespread. I mean, even if just a couple streets lose power in town, now those kids can't learn for an actual school day, and other students will be. So, I mean, I feel like power is a concern, internet's a concern. I don't know.
Can I ask an unrelated question? I'm noticing on this first version of the calendar that you'd like us to approve that there is no graduation date set. And I know that the state made a change this past year allowing districts to set a graduation date. And I'm wondering if you've given consideration to setting that now with this calendar.
Well, this would be 2022.
Yep.
So you want to put a graduation date on the calendar?
I personally would like to see us do that. I'm glad the state passed that legislation to allow districts to set a graduation date. I think that it's useful to give families that advanced ability to plan, and it helps the folks who are planning our graduation festivities to be able to set that date now.
I don't remember
Sure, I
how
tell you
that
what,
legislation was written specifically, but I thought that it still contemplated that we would do that in the fall.
I think
And
my
not-
understanding is it says you can set it at as long as you schedule 180 days of learning, you can schedule the graduation date, and that then should you have snow days or whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean you need to push back your graduation date.
When did we
I have
set the
to go do a little
graduation date
research
for
on
this
that.
year?
We haven't.
We haven't yet. We
For
would have
21.
normally done it
We
already.
have not set a graduation date. Could we defer to February 2nd to the next board meeting with just getting some information, some feedback, Charles? Would that be to put off a vote on this tonight and bring it back in 2 weeks?
Version 1, you mean?
Version 1, I'm sorry.
Sure. So I can go, let me go research that legislation, and then you're asking to put a graduation date on the calendar and bring it back on our next meeting in a couple weeks.
Right. If that
Probably-
wouldn't be,
Can do that. Yep. That's fine. I can do that.
We need to do this year as well then. I mean,
yeah.
Be smart.
juniors will know when
Yeah,
they're
so let me
graduating,
go,
but the seniors won't.
Yeah, let me go back and speak with Kate about putting a graduation day on the calendar, and we'll put it back on the agenda then for
February
February's meeting.
2nd. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that way we'll have more information. And we can give some more thought to snow days and remote days. And I feel for the kids who would not have had any experience with remote days. And Laurel and Lauren, you're both right in terms of youngsters and power outages and things. So we really have to think about this. And again, it comes back to, moving the date till the end of school until we run out of June days. So it's always the
Okay.
same.
Okay, so next agenda, we'll have a revisit version 1 of the calendar with the graduation date on it, and also an approval of this year's graduation date.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you, Charles.
Of course.
Okay.
And then I just have one other piece of new business. I need your approval. We are very appreciative of the Mark and Carolyn Guidry Foundation. So this is a grant that was brought to some of our teachers, and our teachers, clearly have no lack of needs. So they did apply for and have been awarded now $4,059 for a laser cutter, $507 for a square reader for the Highlander Cafe, $2,127 for a robotics coding kit, and then $2,113 for a drone for our videography course. So if you have any questions about those items, happy to answer them to the best I can. Otherwise, these are some things that the board would need to accept.
It's wonderful.
It is. That's really great.
Fantastic.
Well, I'll make a motion that we accept the donation from the Mark and Carolyn Gidry Foundation and the amount as described for the 4 items. And a thank you to them. And I don't have the amount in front of me. I had it written down a minute ago. Sorry.
It's 8,806.91.
91. Okay. And that
I'll
amount.
second that.
Laurel second.
Yep.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank the grant writers for writing those grants and finding those places to get money and items.
For sure. Thank you.
Now we'll move on to old business, superintendent's proposed budget. So we marked off
So
our,
the only,
go ahead, Charles.
yeah, there were 2 pieces of information that he had asked me to get for you in preparation for tonight. One were the number of students by grade level in the open choice program. I emailed you that in the Friday highlights last Friday. And also you asked Eric to kind of survey and take a look around other districts and identify how many in which districts are leasing versus not leasing one-to-one Chromebooks. So Eric did that. He called around and he was able to give me a list. I'll just sort of read down through what he provided me. The town of Berlin does not lease. The town of Coventry does not lease. Cromwell does not lease. East Hampton does not lease. Glastonbury does lease. Middletown used to lease, but does not lease anymore. Plainville does not lease. Region 13, Durham Middlefield does lease. Rocky Hill does not lease. Seymour does lease. Southington does lease. Wallingford does not lease. And Weathersfield does lease. So Eric was able to, in some cold calls here, identify 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 districts, excuse me,
5. Yep.
in our area who currently do lease their Chromebooks.
Were there any reasons given, like for, I think you said Middletown used to lease and doesn't anymore?
I do not have, no, I don't have that here. I could find out what, or maybe Chris, you know, but.
I don't. I'm not sure what happened with that. I think it was a cost thing, but I'm not 100% sure.
Is Eric on the call? Does he?
He
can we
was.
Unmute Eric and ask him. He might have asked that question.
I saw him a minute ago. I guess he might have. Oh, there. No.
We're unmuting him now.
Hi, Eric.
Hi, everyone.
Can you hear us?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep, we got you.
so the question was, why did Middletown why did they formerly lease but not anymore? They had leased at a time where, similar to what we're experiencing, they were way behind. They were able to catch up through, while leasing, setting aside money year to year to the point where they no longer had to lease and were in a better position to purchase. But at the time they were leasing, they needed to make such a large volume purchase that leasing was the only way that they could obtain the number of devices they needed.
Thank you for looking into that.
You're welcome.
Eric, if we did lease, is it a year-to-year contract or are we signing like a 5-year agreement or something?
You're signing a 4-year agreement.
4-year.
Well, we priced it out at 4 years. And we did that because the warranties are 4-year warranties. So we matched the lease to the warranty. You could do a 3-year lease. You could do a 2-year lease. It drives, obviously, the fewer years drives the cost up. We wouldn't want to go longer than 4 because then we're leasing out of warranty devices, which doesn't make sense.
Okay.
And Eric, all the districts you spoke with who are currently leasing, are they all satisfied with their arrangements?
Yeah, I mean, they, a lot of them spoke to the $1 buyout at the end, you know, that you lease these devices and at the end of 4 years for $1, they're yours. And so they continue to use these devices until their end of life in the district, which is not 4 years. The devices can last anywhere, you know, these quality of laptops last anywhere from 6 to 8 years. So you do get, you know, for $1 per device, some back end use that's part of our model. And that was the draw for a lot of districts.
Right.
I had a question more related to, and again, I don't think Stephanie will be able to answer it because we don't know what we're going to get, but if we were able to buy some portion of the Chromebooks with monies that we will receive from the state now, you know, let's say we could buy 200 of them and then only have to lease 325, would that be something that we could talk about once we see where money we get from this CARES Act or whatever? That was, is that a possibility to buy some now and then lease less? With the new budget?
Well, you know,
Go ahead, Charles.
Go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to say, you know, well, you know, we'll wait to see what qualifies for the next round of CARES money. Right. What I would suggest, you know, I'll just go back to the reasoning that we're looking to, in some way, shape, or form, whether it's purchasing or leasing, make this a fixed operating cost within the district. So, you know, I just would want to be upfront that we're not going to have money coming from the COVID heavens forever.
Right.
You know, and that big nugget of needing to spend on 1,000 devices in 4 years is not going away. So I don't want that to be a shock relative to what we spend next year.
Right. I'm just thinking that going forward, if we only had to buy 300 or we only had to lease 300, clearly that fixed amount would be less. And if you age out what we have, we're not going to be in terrible shape if we can deal with the 525. So that was my only thought. But thank you for the work that you've done.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? Stephanie, were you going to chime in?
No, I was just going to say the same thing. Until we find out what's eligible under new funding, it could be a possibility. But we just...
Hasn't that money been so far for our COVID expenses?
Yeah.
Can't hear you, Steph.
Internet connection isn't so
Sorry, I have internet connection.
You're back.
No, I just said, but at some point, depending on how much we would want to put aside for that, if we could, we still would have to get the difference to catch up.
Right.
Right. CABE did put out something that came from, I don't know where it came from, the Department of Education at the federal level, and they talk about some of the things that that you can use the money for. Some of it is to cover the loss of learning and improving air quality. I'll send you the thing that I got from CABE today that I downloaded. It appears you can use it for technology too, but it remains to be seen. And how much we get, we don't know. So it's a question mark right now.
And all of our other COVID related expenses haven't been covered yet, have they, Stephanie?
Right.
We still running a deficit in that other?
The last grade, the Corona Relief Fund only covered us through December 30th. So now anything like the PVLA and all that going forward, it's all stuff that we have to cover on our own.
So there's more that we would be looking to be reimbursed for before we could really kind of justify using the expenses for the purchase of
Correct.
Chromebooks.
If we can get them into the budget, that'd be fantastic. So we didn't have to worry about that. But you know, it's going to be probably another, just PVLA alone. is probably enough from now until the end of the year is probably another $40,000. And I believe there's more sections being added now for the next semester, so it could be even more.
Any other budget questions?
Well, I have a question for, I guess, for Charles or for Dawn, if we're okay changing course at this point away from computers. I don't want to change if anybody has more computer questions.
Doesn't look like it. Go ahead.
Okay, so in the summary, in Dawn's summary about student services, there's a reference to Wheeler Clinic no longer being contracted to supply some of the clinical services at the collaborative learning program at the high school. And I was just wanting clarification and kind of summary of that, because it was sort of a passing reference. And I just I want to understand that better.
Take that one, or do you want me to grab it?
I can take it, Charles, if you want. Sorry, I'm in my office and it's very cold where I'm at, so I'm covered up in blankets. But so we're exploring options with our 7 through 12 therapeutic day program. We're exploring options with staffing and the consulting work we've been using with Mari Wrightington and as well as the administration at the secondary school level. So we're looking to continue that model that we're using right now, but staffing movement could be taking place. But we're in the middle of contract talks with that, so I really can't, the money's not going to change, but I can't really speak a lot about the contract at this point because we're still in the middle of exploring that.
Sure, I get that. That was the piece I was hoping to understand, that financially, whatever decisions are being made will kind of be a wash. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Yep. Thank you. That helps.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Comments?
I just think this budget is as good as it's going to get. I think it's well thought out. It's an honest budget. It's probably higher than I thought we would go, but in looking at line items and just thinking about our needs and what we've been able to accomplish this year, Stephanie and Charles have, worked wonders with the money that we've had, and people have gone without things. I think this budget should go as it's presented, as Charles presented it. And I would certainly vote to move it along to the selectmen.
Yeah, I agree with Meg, and just, as a reminder to ourselves and everyone listening, 84% of the additional money that we're asking for is going to cover our contractual obligations and the benefits for our staff. And this is, like you said, Meg, this is as good as it's going to get.
Yeah.
So I think you're right that it's a fair budget, and yeah, thank you.
Lauren?
I completely agree. It's a fair budget. It's lean. There's really nothing left to get rid of. And I honestly would have loved to see it higher. I mean, I feel like the only way we're going to improve our schools is if we increase funding. And as Laurel pointed out, most of our increase in funding is going towards contractual obligations. So we're not increasing our programming. We're not increasing our teaching staff. We're not adding sports. We're not adding a new world language or orchestra or a gifted program. We are simply maintaining what we have. And I hope that the Board of Selectmen pass this through as is.
Dave?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said.
Tim?
I think it's fine. I think, like anybody, I'd like to see a lower percentage, but I think when you look at our history of what we've gotten for increases over the years and how we've ignored some of our capital needs, especially the track and this one-to-one we made a commitment for this one-to-one technology, and we spent the time to put a replacement cycle plan in place, and the budgets haven't allowed for that to be done the way we had hoped, and leasing would make us honest in our commitment to that one-to-one technology. And I think this budget puts it forward what we need to maintain and to help our students attain the gains that that we're responsible to bring forward.
Chris?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's fair, covers our priorities. It's a reasonable increase. I understand why we had some positions in order to make this work, but we have priorities in terms of technology and contractual obligations. So it seems fair, and I'll support it.
Okay, as will I. I think it does reflect our policy commitments and our goals of what we'd like to accomplish in the district. So would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to the full board to recommend that we present the school budget, the superintendent's budget for the year 21-22 as it's presented this evening.
Is there a second?
Second.
Laurel? Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Thank you, Charles. It is a good budget.
And Stephanie, thank you.
And Stephanie, and you both have worked miracles with the money that we've had. So I know this is as good as we're going to get, but it's a good budget. Now we just have to make sure everybody gets behind us, all the teachers and parents, and we need to make a good point of helping people to understand that this is a good budget.
Well, as our previous superintendent used to say, now it's our budget.
Yes, it is our budget. It is.
That's true. That's
We own
true.
it.
Okay, we'll move on to committee reports, curriculum.
We had a meeting today. Unfortunately, I was late and had to leave early because I had to pick my kids up from school because they were in school. But they were just doing a lot of planning of PD.
Okay, policy.
Policy does not have a date to meet, but we do have, we will have a heavy schedule when we do, hopefully in February sometime.
Okay, personnel, we had a brief meeting today, and I think we'll have some information to share perhaps at our February meeting regarding ongoing discussions with contracts. Buildings and grounds.
There's a meeting tomorrow afternoon, and it's the first assembly of the facilities task force. It's just kind of ground rules and figuring out what we need to do and whatnot. It should be exciting. It's a good beginning.
Great. Conservation and renewable task force.
Nothing at the moment.
Okay. Correct liaison.
CREC is going to meet tomorrow at 11:30 and conduct a quick business only meeting. And then we'll break for policy. I think the policy meeting comes after that, and we should be done by about 1 o'clock so we can watch the inauguration.
Hey, Meg,
Oh,
can
sorry.
I ask a question about CREC?
Yep. Yep.
Sure.
I saw, I still get all their emails and
Yep.
stuff because I'm the alternate, and they're making the case to change their constitution. Did you look at that stuff to see?
I did, and I did. That's going to, I think that may come up tomorrow. They're going to, they have a board of directors right now, and they're going to create the council will be the governing body. So every school board has a representative that goes to CREC with voting rights, and it'll be interesting to see because the board of directors right now does a lot of the day-to-day kinds of things.
And Who are the people on the board of directors, Meg, just for us who aren't familiar?
I would have to, I don't have that in front of me right now. I can send it out to the board so that you'll know, but it's Greg Florio and I
Not
don't
by
know who
name,
the
but
others.
just, they're
Yeah.
not,
He's the executive.
they're not
He's the executive
representatives.
director.
They're not
No,
representatives of the districts or the boards of education or anything. They're like
I don't believe
professionals.
so. I don't believe so.
No,
I don't. Go ahead, Tim.
no, I just, when I was in the liaison role, they had done another constitution change. And what they've been doing is slowly moving away from, it was always the all the Board of Education representatives voted and, basically approved everything that was presented by the executive director. And then a few years ago, they moved that so that a smaller core group could act, because they had a really hard time getting everybody there that they needed to have a quorum. And now this other step, what I was wondering is, it looks like they're moving even further from that to where it's going to be this board of directors. It's going to be making those decisions, and they'll just be bringing it to the liaisons kind of like informationally, it seems.
Yeah, and there's about 46 members of different
Right.
boards who are on the council right now, but not everybody shows up. As you know, sometimes life gets in the way of these things. So I don't know how that will work, and I don't know that it will pass, but that's the recommendation. So we'll see. I'll let you know, to be continued for sure.
Board of Selectmen?
Thank you.
Nothing significant, other than they did mention that the school opening plan back at that time on June 6th. And they also, the kickoff of the budget process was, that they referenced. That was the only thing significant.
Okay, Task Force on Solidarity?
They had their last meeting on the same day as our last meeting, so I wasn't able to participate, but I did get an email today. Well, before that, I got information, and I want to get the name right, so I want to look at my emails. It's oh god, April Graves, I think it. Yeah,
it is April Graves.
Yeah, in April. So what they've done is they've gotten their surveys out to the public, so they're out there. I don't know, have any of you guys on the board seen them?
I have.
Yeah, so they're out there to take, and we're encouraging everybody to take the survey and to help kind of establish a baseline based on the survey of where people are and what their thoughts and what what their needs are. In follow up to that, there's going to be a forum on February 22nd at 7 o'clock, I believe it is. It's going to be a Zoom event. And they're going to get that posted out there, where they're going to bring people together and they're going to talk about the survey and what the survey found, and what the next steps are. And it's important that we get as much participation, or they get as much participation in that as they can. But the important thing now is the survey. If you have the link, to just click on it and do it. And if you don't, you can find it. I think you can find it on community page, Portland page. So it's out.
Charles, was the school, or Tim, do you know if the school was asked to send that survey out to parents or to community members?
I don't know. I think that the task group is taking the lead in that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if the schools were asked to. I know that April said today that Dr. Britton and possibly Eric Martin would participate in the forum if they were available on the 22nd to do that. So that's.
Yeah, Eric, can you unmute Eric for a second? Eric and I met with April. I had to leave halfway through our meeting. April did invite Eric and I to join the community forum, which we're happy to. Eric, did April ask us as the schools to share the link for the survey? I wasn't there for that part of the conversation.
No, she did not. We did, Charles and I had offered to attend that night. There seemed to be kind of a misunderstanding. That invitation was for Charles and I to attend as potential representatives of the Board of Ed, in addition to Tim. And Charles and I just made the point that we're actually not members of the Board of Education, but that we'd be happy to attend and represent Portland Public Schools in addition to the Board of Education, but we did not talk about sending the survey out to our parents through our communications.
I will just comment that I thought the survey was really just limited to a little bit about the town, but more about how the Board of Ed is providing services to families in town. So it was a little bit skewed toward Board of Ed responses. I didn't see anything about housing. I didn't see anything about employment. I didn't see anything about minority businesses getting assistance. So I was a little bit surprised that it was skewed toward Board of Ed questions.
That's a good observation. I hadn't really thought about that, but I did notice that it did have a focus on Board of Ed, but I hadn't really thought about all the things it excluded, and those are all excellent things.
Yeah. That I would think a town task force would be more interested in that. But anyway, well, we'll see what the survey results are.
Tim, do you know, are you all receiving survey results? Are people taking the survey?
I don't know. April would know that. I'm not a part of that. I just, I liaison. So
you liaise.
I'll tell you this, I did the survey, so I know there's at least one response in there.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience of citizens that'd like to make any comments at this point?
It doesn't look like we have anybody at this time.
Thank you. Okay. Board of Ed member comments? Lauren, do you want to bring up your question again?
Sure, yeah. I just am curious as to whether or not we could have a conversation about the renaming of Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day.
Are you looking for comments?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know if it was just a.
Yes.
Lauren, I would,
something others would like to address.
Yeah, I think we should absolutely address it. And thank you, Lauren, for bringing it up. I would add that I had the opportunity to speak to Eric and to Charles about this a month or so ago around Thanksgiving. And what I heard from both of them is that they thought it would be a great idea for our equity task force to take a look at that and have a conversation around that and maybe bring a proposal to the board. So I would just throw that out there that we could as a board agree that maybe that would be a great place for it to start.
I think it would be.
And I think our liaison should take it to the town task force as well, so that we're in line with and how the town views Columbus Day. So we could do it, do double duty.
Let's see what Charles and Eric's group comes up with first, perhaps. I don't know.
I mean, should we look at all the holidays, though? Should we look at Christmas and rename that to just holiday? I mean, that's been discussed before too. So I think we really need to look at all the holidays.
They're very different things.
I mean, there's been a lot of controversy about Christmas from some of the religious organizations. So maybe we need to revisit.
No, there's not.
We don't have a Christmas holiday on our calendar.
It's listed on there as Christmas.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
I think it's winter break, but we can look.
Okay.
Christmas Day and recess.
Correct.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
I know I for one don't feel like it's a burning issue, and it brings me back to that. What is it? Shakespeare arose by any other name. I mean, it's still going to be a federal holiday. It's a state holiday. It's Columbus Day, and I know there was a big brouhaha. I think in West Hartford, wasn't it, where they finally renamed it to Indigenous People Day? Just created a lot of controversy and a lot of division.
Well, let's see what Charles and Eric's group comes up with, and If they bring a proposal to the board, we can have a further discussion then. Any other comments?
No.
I guess I would comment that because as I was singled out in an editorial in the River East as a board member for comments I made at our meeting on the 7th. And if you didn't see it, they're going to reprint it because it was editorially, it was kind of cut off on there. But, you know, I've responded to that on there, and I would just encourage people to actually go back and look at the record, the recorded record of what was said. And I think that you'll find is it doesn't match what the accusation is. And it's unfortunate that people have to choose to take that. You know, we need to be working together, and we need to be positive and doing the right things. And that doesn't get us there, I don't think.
Well, I read part of the letter, and I appreciate you sending me the entirety of the letter, Tim, earlier today. I haven't had a chance to read it all, but that was the point that I got from the letter that was in the River East. Again, not being able to read the entirety of it. And I think that's, there were a lot of comments that the board received singling out certain groups and their positions regarding the reopening discussions that we had. And I think it's important for everyone to remember that the board is responsible for setting policies and, you know, dealing with these issues. And there's lots of different groups that have lots of different positions and thoughts about things. And we, as Charles said, when we started the meeting, we're here to set an example in terms of how we address these things in a civil manner. And I would hope that would spread not only into those who address us in our meetings, but also those who send emails or letters, that, you know, we're all dealing with the information we have. We're trying to make decisions that are in everyone's best interest, and it's difficult, and you're never going to make everyone happy. So I think we're all just doing the best we can, and it's important to remember that.
Absolutely.
Any other comments?
No.
Okay, next on the agenda, there's an executive session listed, but I don't believe we have anything to go into executive session on tonight. Do we, Charles?
Only because we're hoping that Rebecca would have been back to us with an update, but I spoke with her today and she's not ready for us yet.
All right, so that'll go over so when we need it. There's no action on a possible executive session. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn at 8:34.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good night.
This was early tonight.
Good.
Good night.
Find my
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Farewell.
Oh, I gotta find the leave button here. Good night.
I can't find the leave button in mine either. Yeah.
Lower right. It's my screen was so big.
There
It's
it
not
is.
now.